Hello and welcome back to this course of videos on MongoDB. In this video we will be creating a database in MongoDB and then creating a collection to go in that database. If you recall from previous videos, the smallest unit of storage in Mongo is a document whose equivalent in relational databases is a row. One or more documents go in a collection whose relational database equivalent is a table, and one or more collections go into a database. Now, after looking at Mongo, we will be doing the same thing in MySQL. So without further ado, let's go to our command prompt or terminal, and I'm going to run my MongoDB executable file, which will start my server listening, and then I will create a separate command prompt, and I will run my Mongo executable file, which will give me my CLI, so I can write commands against my database. The first command I will run is showdbs, which shows me the existing databases that are in my Mongo database, on my Mongo server. Admin and local are default ones. I want to create a database called ShoeStore, an e-commerce database that sells shoes. So the use command, very simple in Mongo, use will create our database. Now that's not strictly true, because if I go to showdbs, you will see that it hasn't actually officially been created yet. That is because Mongo will not create the database until it has a collection added to it. So we need to create our collection. Now the way we're going to create our collection, if I just type in DB here, you will see that DB gives us the current working database. Now this DB can be envisaged like an object in JavaScript. Now, so we're going to use DB dot, and as you know, objects in JavaScript can have methods attached to them. Now the method we're going to run against the DB object is create collection. Now we add parentheses to the end, as we do when we execute methods in JavaScript, exactly the same. This actual method has a parameter of the name of the collection that you wish to add. So db.createCollection. So my collection is created. Now if I go back and I look at showdbs again, you can see now that the ShoeStore database has actually been created. If I wish to drop a database, I would say DB again, because as we mentioned before, the DB object represents the ShoeStore database, and there is a method called drop database. Again, we put the parenthesis on the end, as we do when executing a JavaScript method, and my database is dropped. So again, if I then show DBS, I can see that again I only have my two databases. But I want to create my ShoeStore, if I can spell it correctly, ShoeStore database, so I am going to create it again. I want to create my customer collection here. I'm also going to create a second collection called products. So now if I do the show collections, I can see that I have two collections. If I wish to drop a collection, what I can do here, this is slightly different. My DB object, as we said, represents my ShoeStore. Now, my collections are, if you imagine objects, sub-objects that are attached to my database object. So my ShoeStore object, using dot notation, I can drill down to my products collection. So this is just like the dot notation you see in regular JavaScript. db.products. So this products collection object also has methods, and one of the methods that it has is drop. I put my parenthesis on the end to as we do when we execute methods, and this is going to drop my products collection. If I go back to my show collections, you can see now that I only have the customer collection. Now the big difference with NoSQL databases like Mongo versus relational databases like MySQL is I can just start adding data to my collection now without actually defining any kind of schema, without giving Mongo any idea of what kind of data I'm going to add. We won't do it in this lesson, but the way we would run the command would just be to say db dot, and then I would say customers to reference my collection, and insert. Now, and I can just start adding data to Mongo right now. Now let's switch over to SQL now. I'm just going to Control C out of here, and let's just move into MySQL, because we'll see how different that is in MySQL. As we said, with relational databases, we need to define schema up front. However, NoSQL databases, as we said, are schemaless. So I'm going to log into MySQL. I'm going to say .u for my user. My user is root. .p to prompt for the password, and I'm going to log into MySQL. So, similar commands in MySQL. Instead of show DBS, you actually have to say show databases. Always need a semicolon with MySQL. You can see these are my databases. You can see I'd already created a ShoeStore database here. If I want to drop that ShoeStore database, the command is similar. However, it's slightly more wordy. I say drop database, and then I give the name of the database I want to drop, again colon at the end. Now that is going to drop my database. Just to prove, if I do show databases, now you can see I only have these databases. To create a database, it's not like in Mongo where we just did use ShoeStore, and it implicitly created the database as soon as we added the collection. We have to be more explicit in MySQL and write create database. We write create database, then give us the name of the database, which is ShoeStore, colon at the end. So we have to specifically state that we want to create this database. And we can see now we have create this database. If I show databases, we have the ShoeStore database here added. So now we've dropped database and we've created a database. The next thing that we did on the Mongo side was we created a collection. Now here is when it gets very different, because creating a table in MySQL is a long way different to creating a collection in MongoDB. All we said is db.createCollection and gave the collection name. Creating a table, again, we have to, before we can create a table in MySQL, in relational databases, we have to define the schema. Now, I've put something together in Microsoft Word here. Now this, you can see here, this is my create table. I want to create a table called customers. And we actually have to specify all of the different columns or fields that we want to add to this table. And we didn't have to do any of this with MongoDB. Not only do I have to say add the names of the fields I wish to add, I also have to specify the data type, int or varchar. I have to specify data type. I have to specify a primary key for my ID. One of the fields in any MySQL table needs to have a primary key. And I also have this command not null. The not null says that these fields have to be populated. So you can see, I'm just going to copy this. That's a lot of work that we need to do. We can't just, as in Mongo, create a collection and just give it a name and say, great, I'm not going to tell you what's in there, I just want to create a collection. When creating a table, we have to be very explicit about what the table is going to contain. So if I just paste this in here now, oh, no database selected. Okay, so similar to with Mongo, we use use in a similar sense as we did in Mongo to switch the database. So now we have now ShoeStore is our active database, and now if I run this, you can see this table has been created. And similar to the show collections, we have a show tables command, which says the tables in ShoeStore are customers. Now, another command that we have in MySQL is called describe. and I can pass the table name was customers. Now describe actually gives us the schema of the table that we just created. If you look at this, here is the schema. There's the field names, there's the data types. Are they null, yes or no? That my ID was the primary key. So you see, this is a big difference. We have to create a table very different to a collection. We have to define this schema before we can begin adding data. So I hope that gives you a good introduction to creating databases and collections in NoSQL databases and creating tables in SQL databases and the difference. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.